Hello friends, today's video is about world building. I assume if you're come to this video, you're probably a writer, you probably enjoy world building if you clicked on this. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I just will start off by saying I love to world build. I think I find this in a lot of writers too. Um, Especially the feeling, particularly, of just being kind of stuck in the world building process. It's easy to just keep world building and never actually write your story. And so this is certainly a dilemma that we find ourselves in as writers. So I kind of want to talk about that specifically. First of all, when it comes to world building, you have to understand that you could literally do it forever. You are creating an entire world, right? And so you can just keep defining all the little details if you want, right? And so world building as a project can take as long or as little as you like. And so it is up to you to actually put your foot down and say, I'm cutting things off right here. I'm not going to world build anymore. Okay. You just have to make that decision at some point. But on the other hand, I am the first to defend world building just by itself. I think that it's actually a very fun thing to do and a beneficial thing to do, even if it never turns into a story. And that's for pretty much two reasons. The first reason is that it is just enjoyable. And I think anything that's enjoyable in life and that is a creative sort of process is totally cool. I mean, who cares if you don't write the thing? Um, you're having fun. That's what matters when it comes to the creative process, I think, right? And secondly, sometimes it's good to just sort of lay down a groundwork for your ideas, and that doesn't have to come into fruition right now. Maybe down the line, you come back, you look at the sort of what you've done with your world building and get new inspiration, right? And so things can always cascade and affect other things that are real work, even if that particular world never turns into something concrete. So don't be down about if you're just world building and you're never actually getting to the writing process, because I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But in any case, I recently did decide to stop world building and start actually writing my story because I've had this idea for a few months now that I really like. And so I've been world building it for a bit and really enjoying doing that. But eventually, the past week, I just decided I just got to start writing. I just got to start writing. And it's a scary thing, because I'm not a refined writer. I haven't written that much in my life. And so whatever I write, I'm just going to have to accept is not going to be as good as I'd like it to be. That's just sort of what you do with writing, you know. There's a fear, especially when we have such good ideas. If you think you have such a good idea, you fear that once you actually put it into words, it will, you'll ruin it with how inexperienced you are at the moment. And that's kind of, I think that's unhealthy, mostly because if you never write anything at all, then you'll never get to write your good ideas, you know? And so if you want, you can just write a bunch of bad ideas until you get good at writing and then you write your good ideas. I know some people who have taken up that as a strategy, but in my opinion, I don't get inspiration to write if it's something that I'm not passionate about. And so I have to be writing my good ideas, even if I might quote unquote ruin them. But the beauty of writing is that it's not that if I write something, it is set in stone forever. I can go back, I can change it. And I actually think this is an essential process to writing that I think a lot of people miss. It is very good to take a break from your work, come back a year later, months later, and revisit it with a new perspective, a new fresh perspective. I think that that's what you should do with everything that you write. You're going to get better as you make your way through something, as you come back, revisit it, add some extra things. So your work kind of develops as you develop. The other thing is there's also this fear when you start to get writing that you need to have every little plot point planned out. And I think that recently, I've never been able to not write that way. I've always had to have a super detailed outline that goes over every single thing that's happening, at every single scene. But recently I decided to get out my comfort zone a little bit. I just had a basic kind of plot, and the details I did not flesh out. I decided I was just going to do that as I wrote. And it has been quite a liberating experience, actually. I've been writing and coming up with things on the spot, and it's made the actual writing process a lot more fun. And I think it also makes for a certain level of flow in my work that didn't really exist before. And so I highly encourage you to not feel as though you have to plan every single detail of your plot. Just start writing. Just start writing and you will benefit. It doesn't matter if it's good or it's bad or whatever. You just need to start writing. So, yeah, I mean, what's the moral of the story with all that I've said? Because it kind of seems like I'm pro world building. It kind of seems like I'm pro writing. But honestly, do whatever you want, but if you're going to start writing, you need to if you really don't want to keep world building, if you want to break out of that, then I would say there's a lot of things that you should know so that you can start to do that. But if you're fine world building, if you're in your little world building world, I am not here to break you out of your bubble. Keep having fun, I say. So yeah, but if you are world building too, I have some advice, and this might seem like obvious advice, but it's not obvious to everyone. First of all, when it comes to world building, you need to make sure that you actually have a story. You actually have characters. If you're just world building and you don't have a story that you're actually trying to tell, this is bad, because world building must serve the story. It can't just exist in a vacuum, right? That's bad world building, essentially. Or at least it's not interesting world building. Interesting world building is entwined with the story itself. And that means more than just it is a backdrop for the characters to do whatever the characters are doing. It means that the way that the world is and the way that things interact within your world is congruent with your themes, with your plot, with your characters. Everything must intertwine together, and this is very essential to good world building. A great example, if you want an example, would be Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, one of my favorite shows. If you haven't seen it, it's about one of the biggest world building elements of the show is alchemy, which is sort of this magic system that exists within the show. And what's so beautiful about the magic system is that it has certain rules. And these rules, one of which is that what is taken must be equally given. And so there's always that equal exchange. The law of equivalent exchange is what they call it in the show.
It is impossible to create something out of nothing. If one wishes to obtain something, something of equal value must be given. This is the law of equivalent exchange.
And what's beautiful about this is that not only does it inform the magic system, but the magic system is also highly tied to the overarching plot of the show, including these very specific rules. And on top of that, the law of equivalent exchange also serves as a metaphor for the thematic elements that the show is trying to explore, i.e., you must make sacrifices in life in order to get anything, right? And so there's that thematic connection, there's the plot connection. The plot would literally make, the plot isn't just on top of the magic system, it's literally intertwined, like, on every single level. If you've seen the show, I won't spoil it, but the magic system is very essential to the plot, as you might know if you've seen the show. Everything about the world, the themes, the characters, it all intersects, and that is great world building. So you need to be thinking about that when you are writing your story. And specifically, you need to be thinking about themes. I think theming is very important. What are you trying to say with your story? And how can you say that through the world? That's very essential. Okay, so that's my first piece of advice. The second piece of advice, and one that will probably get me into more trouble, is you need to think about politics when you're writing your story. And when I'm saying politics, I do not mean like electoral politics. I mean politics as in the way that human beings organize themselves socially. Everything is political on some level. Everything is going to have a underlying message about how society should function, how society should be organized, how people should act within a society. All of that is going to be implicit to any world building project that is attempting to, build a society, right? I assume in your world, there are probably societies of people that function in very specific ways. And so, as much as you want to avoid politics, any depiction of society is necessarily going to have an implicit message to it, right? And so think about what politics you would like to express in your work. Because if the heroes beat the big bad guy at the end of your story and just set the world back into status quo and nothing has changed, that is giving a very specific type of political message that is saying the status quo is a good thing meant to be protected. Instead, maybe think about, what if there was a type of progression? There was a type of upheaval of the structures of the world that people live under. That could be very interesting, make for a much more interesting story that has a lot more political nuance to it. So keep that in mind. So, with that all said, I think that'll do it for this video. I just wanted to give my thoughts on world building in general, especially because I've been doing it a lot recently, and I've been writing recently, and writing is one of my favorite things. And so it's exciting. It's exciting. So yeah, go out, do some writing, do some world building, whatever you want to do, have some fun. I hope you enjoyed what I've said here, and I'll see you in the next video.